Good afternoon. I am recording this extra remotely this week, so I'm a little farther away from our shul than is typical, but I'm thinking of you all, and I miss you all very much. In this week's Parshat Shelach, we hear about the Meraglim, the spies that are sent to scout out the land of Israel, and they come back famously, infamously, with a very negative report of what they found there. And in the context of their report, they share. We saw the Nephilim there, the Anakites, whatever these are, some sort of large giants or very big people, impressive people who lived in Eretz Israel. And the spies say, we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we're also grasshoppers in their eyes. To say you're grasshoppers in your own eyes, that's a sign of feeling very, very small. To say that they were grasshoppers in the eyes of others is to sort of impute one's own low self-esteem onto someone else. It's sort of a strange thing it's a natural thing, but it's not something we typically have real knowledge about. Rashi says, no, they actually did have real knowledge. Shamanu amrim zelazeh. Nimalim yesh bekramim ka'anashim. Wow, they're like, ants who look like people in the vineyards there, okay? So according to Rashi, when they say we were like grasshoppers in their eyes, that was actually a factual assessment of the way that the inhabitants of the land evaluated the spies. They were being entirely objective in conveying that information that we were like grasshoppers, not only in our own eyes, but in their eyes too. And Netziv says differently and says appearing like grasshoppers, not appearing like grasshoppers. That's just a symbol for the degree of confidence that they had, okay? And the fact that they trembled when they saw the strength and stature of their opponents made their confidence vanish. And saying we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes is saying we lost our confidence. We lost our sense that we could possibly be successful in eventually confronting them. And we appeared that way in their eyes, meaning they were not at all intimidated of us. So according to the Netziv, this line about grasshoppers is actually a reflection of the subjective the subjective assessment on each side, the spies and the inhabitants of the land, as they are contemplating their impending confrontation. So we have here in Rashi and the Netziv, these sort of two different approaches to understanding this phrase, one in a very subjective way, one in a more objective way. And I think it's interesting to think about when we confront all sorts of experiences, we sort of have that interplay, right, of the subjective and the objective. One example that I'm thinking of is in the context of our community, as we're approaching, please God, maybe only days away from having outdoor mincha marav minyanim, perhaps only weeks away from having socially distanced, limited capacity minyanim 3 times a day, including on Shabbat, indoors as well. And this is a prospect that fills me with a lot of joy and anticipation, and also a lot of sadness over what is not going yet to be possible. And there's an episode in the book of Ezra when the second Beit HaMikdash was built where those who remembered what the first Beit HaMikdash was like, they wept when they saw the second Beit HaMikdash. It was so small, it was puny, it didn't have all of the open miracles of the first Beit HaMikdash, and they wept. But there were others who cried tears of joy, and there was so much weeping and so much rejoicing that nobody could tell what was rejoicing, what was weeping. It was all mixed together in this mix of emotions among the population that was there as the second Beit HaMikdash was being built. That's sort of how I'm anticipating what it's going to be like to eventually be at Minyan again, that we're not going to have some of the elders who were the backbone of our Minyan for so many decades. We're not going to have young and old and children getting lollipops and children's groups and kiddush and sholint and schmoozing, all of the and the shul can't be filled even near capacity for a number of additional months at best. And that's a great amount of sadness, as those who saw the second Beit HaMikdash were sad. But there's also joy in step by step, small step by step, to rebuilding our lives and bringing that sanctity back into our community, as the second Beit HaMikdash was a sanctified, holy place that brought God's presence to earth. And it's you can see things. You can look at it from either perspective. In the time of Ezra, there was Rashi tells us it was those who were old enough to remember the first Beit Hamikdash wept, and those who were not old enough to remember the first Beit Hamikdash, they were really happy. But I think actually some of these emotions can be each one of us. Most of us remember what Shul was like in February, and we can have that sadness, and hopefully we can all have some joy as well, even if we ourselves won't be able to attend minyan because of our own health profile or tolerance for risk. We can still, I think, feel a little bit of that joy as well, that this form of sanctity is returning to our community. And I think as well, this ability to see things objectively and subjectively at the same time and go back and forth, I think that is at stake as well in this conversation that's happening right now in the United States concerning race and racial justice and the protest movement that has emerged in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. I heard really a very, very, very powerful audio essay by a journalist named Bim Adewunmi. She was on the most recent episode of the radio show This American Life. It's Act One, Letter from America, and she writes, I think, such a powerful sort of observation. She's a black journalist, an immigrant from the United Kingdom, and she sort of wonders why this outrage, why this protest movement now? Why didn't it happen 50 murders ago, or 200 murders ago, or 2,000 murders ago? What is it about this moment that sparked a mass movement that seems to have already transformed the country, and please God will continue to transform the country in really positive ways? And she has no answer for that. For her, it's a source of frustration in her white colleagues and friends who are all of a sudden getting things that she's known for so long, right? The objective reality has not changed. The objective reality really has been the same for many, many years. Subjectively, though, something changes, and subjectively, something changing can actually be significant. She doesn't say that. That's what I'm saying, okay? Subjectively, things can change, and that can be significant even when the objective reality has not changed. And I think that's, again, something we see as Rashi and the Netziv, as they are contending with the different ways of understanding the spies' assertion that they looked like grasshoppers in the eyes of the inhabitants of the land. Is that an objective fact they knew, or was that just a subjective kind of assessment based on how they felt and how the confidence of the giants of the land? I wish you all a wonderful Shabbat, a restful Shabbat, and a peaceful Shabbat, and look forward to the chance to see you again under happy and healthy circumstances.